Okay, let's dive right in. Today we're exploring a truly mind-blowing idea, and it's one that's backed by some serious neuroscience. It's the fact that you can use your mind to physically change your brain, and by doing that, change the very foundation of who you are. But first, let's start with a bit of a puzzle. It's this paradox that sits right at the heart of our own biology. If we know for a fact that our brain's physical hardware is, in some ways, diminishing over time, how on earth is personal growth even possible? How can you learn new things or change your habits? And the scale of this loss is, well, it's just staggering. You start out with about 86 billion neurons. Over your lifetime, you lose billions of them, and you don't really make new ones to replace them. So the big question remains, if the hardware is literally shrinking, where does change even come from? Well, the answer is in this absolutely incredible process. See, it's not about the number of cells, it turns out. It's about the connections between them, all 150 trillion of them. This is called activity-dependent plasticity. Put simply, your brain isn't set in stone. Think of it more like clay. And every single thing you experience, every thought you have, every feeling you feel, is physically re-sculpting it, moment by moment. Okay, so this constant rewiring is happening all the time. That's cool. But what does that actually have to do with the feeling of being, well, you? How does all this electrical and chemical activity create your personality, your memories, your fundamental sense of self? This is where we see a huge shift in thinking. Your self isn't some solid thing you have. Nope. Instead, neuroscientists have a verb for it, selfing. It's an activity your brain is constantly automatically performing, building your identity from scratch in these tiny, rapid-fire slivers of time. And this whole thing happens unbelievably fast. We're talking half a second, just 500 milliseconds, for this entire loop to complete. First, bam, your brain unconsciously filters all the incoming data. Then it builds a sensory picture of what's going on. And only at the very, very end does your conscious mind pop in to label it and make a judgment about it. And this just happens over and over and over all day long. But, there's a flip side to this amazing efficiency. This exact same automatic process can lock us into some really destructive mental habits. By repeating those half-second loops, we can literally wire our brains for anxiety, for chronic worry, or for anger, creating this cycle that just feeds on itself. And this isn't just about, oh, I feel bad. This has real physical consequences. I mean, life or death stuff. Just look at this study from the CDC. It found that people with an angry disposition, that's that taller bar, have a risk of dying from a heart attack that is 2.5 times higher than the general population. That's huge. Clearly, these mental habits have some pretty serious stakes. So if our brains are stuck on this automatic, super fast loop, how do we possibly break free, right? Well, the answer isn't some brand new technology, it's actually ancient wisdom. The way to change isn't by fighting your own mind, but by learning how to consciously reshape it. All right, so this brings us to the really good part, finding freedom in half seconds. How do we actually do it? How do we break the loop? The key, the absolute game changer, is a skill called meta-awareness. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's actually beautifully simple. It's just the ability to be aware of your own awareness. It's knowing where your attention is without judging it from one moment to the next. And what this skill does is it acts like a little wedge. It creates this tiny but super powerful gap in that 500 millisecond loop, right between the trigger and your automatic reaction. And right there, in that little sliver of time, that's where you find the freedom to choose a different response. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory. Let's take a real-world example from one of the neuroscientists whose work we're looking at, Dr. David Vago. He struggled with anger his whole life and even trained himself to have a physical reaction by using a punching bag. But a 10-day silent retreat completely changed the game for him. That's where he developed this meta-awareness to notice the anger rising before it took over, which finally allowed him to break that deeply wired pattern. Okay, so that's a powerful personal story. But what is actually happening inside the brain when we do this? Let's dig into the hard data, because this isn't just theory anymore. It is backed by a mountain of solid scientific proof. I mean, the shift in the scientific community on this has been nothing short of enormous. For a long time, this was all considered pretty fringe. Before the year 2000, if you went looking, you could find maybe 39 peer-reviewed studies on mindfulness. Since then, over 4,000. This stuff has gone from the margins right into the heart of mainstream neuroscience. Check out this amazing study with fibromyalgia patients. When they were shown words related to pain, the untrained group's eyes would literally dart away, a classic unconscious fear reaction. But the mindfulness-trained group, they actually looked towards the words. And then they were able to consciously just let them go. They broke the habit loop on both the automatic and the conscious levels. How cool is that? But here's the most incredible part. This isn't just a psychological shift. It's not just in your head. We can actually see it in the brain. Brain scans show us physical, measurable changes in the very structure and activity of the brain itself. And across study after study, 4 key changes keep popping up. First, the part of your brain responsible for that meta-awareness we talked about, it gets stronger. The networks that help you sense your own body become more active. The brain's main hub for rumination, getting lost in thought, it actually quiets down. And finally, the amygdala, your brain's fear center, it can literally shrink. So, we've talked about the neuroscience, the process, the proof. What does this all mean for you? What's the big takeaway here? What does this boil down to?
It's this, and it's so important. You are not just a passive passenger, just experiencing whatever your brain happens to serve up. You are the active sculptor of your own brain. You're holding the tools to reshape the very organ that creates your entire reality.
And the thing to really, really remember is that this power isn't locked away in your past. We can't change the countless moments that have already wired us. The magic is always, always right here in the present moment. Every single time you choose where to place your attention, you are performing an act of creation. And so I'll leave you with this final thought to take with you. Knowing, just knowing, that every thought, every feeling, and every moment of awareness is physically shaping the very structure of your brain. What are you going to choose to fill it with?